How do you stay so consistent? I don't believe I'm the most consistent roaster ever, but I do have markers to help me stay consistent. I have days where I'm like totally off and I'm like, bro, I gotta just do that again, and I'll just freaking drink this batch for myself or give it to friends away for free. Like, I don't feel comfortable selling it where I feel totally off. Like, for example, the most inconsistent that I'm prone to these days is like wanting to do light and instead roasting a medium. In order for me to stay consistent and to move towards becoming a more consistent roaster, there's a couple of things that I do. One, you got to check the box for good safety protocol and systems first and foremost, which means, you know, the way that you would maybe like step up to throw a free throw, you have basically what's taught to you, or like in coaching, is like you do the same thing over and over again, whether that's like bounce 3 times, bend the knees 3 times, shoot, right? Like you have a system, you have a routine, and you should do that with almost everything that you do that involves any repetitive action. So turning on your machine, which means for me, I turn on, I go to get the propane thingy. I have it open so I'm not in an enclosed area. I make sure all my surroundings is clear of any clutter or debris or weird stuff. Everything is clean. I check all of the doors and hatches. So, and I have like a little mental checklist for myself. The next step would be checking like the chaff container and making sure like that's not overfilled, because if it is overfilled, that is getting in the way of your airflow, which means you're not going to be able to roast consistently as well. Like just your equipment and machinery is not well maintained to not give you the best product in the end. So it starts there. So check that off the box first. The next, I don't know, your batch size. I used to like not measure batch size accurately. I would just mark it on the freaking thing and be like, oh, about here is like about 1,000 grams. No. In coffee, when you're measuring things, you have to be exact, because what gets measured gets actually managed well. Or develop your own pre-roasting system accordingly. And that's just the most general answer. I don't want to take you through my whole thing. That's a little tedious, but you get the idea. So from start to finish, you're going to develop repetitive patterns and motions and actions. Create a system. Create systems for that. That'll help you be the most consistent, I think, on that front, on the equipment front. Now, becoming a consistent roaster. When you're at the roaster and trying to make decisions, you want to use all of your senses. There's a saying is, as long as your equipment's all in check, like you've checked that box for equipment, and software, like all of the things outside of you are external of you. Cool. Now you as an instrument, as a tool, must also be consistent. So you're preheating, you're maybe in between, they call it in between batch protocol is what Rao called it, right? You can call it whatever you want. But it's basically going from one batch to the next, and how are you handling the heat in between that? Do you have a preheat? Do you idle at this temperature for an amount of time? It doesn't, to me, it's like it doesn't really matter what to do as long as it works for you. Now you could try, you know, person prescribed method. You could try that for sure, because it's a place to start. But eventually you're going to have to just develop your own and what works for you, because every machine is just a little different. The way it's housed, the way it's maintained, where it sits, like if it's the hot top, right? You know, how is it managing heat that way? Is it a hot day? Is it a cold day? Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. I remember one of my subscribers, he was like out in the way mountains or whatever, and the elevation just really like messed up his readings. And so you have to learn other ways of roasting. You have to get around it and develop your own systems, which that's part of it. You're an artist. When you're a roaster, you're learning what it means to become an artist. Now, that could be a turnoff for some people, or it could be really exciting for some. But that's generally what it is. You're making these decisions based upon, you know, a certain goal. And it really can be, and there's room for your goal, whatever that is. And that's a cool thing, right? So, yeah. That's my really long answer to your question.